Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. And the club itself, like, is there still a workout place there? Okay. Maybe you can angle it. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Just make sure you're on the edge of the picture. Yeah.
That's good right there.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Okay.
Just don't bump the chair.
Don't bump the chair.
In fact, not too long ago, like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we were looking at moving in there for a little bit to have renovations. Yeah. We didn't let it go. It was too much. I like that building. I love that building. I think it's old school, but the facility is beautiful. We never built it. Yeah. Yeah. A ton of space. That top floor with all those lockers. Yeah. Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to attend. I like that place.
So we can get it on the.
You got it? You got it?
I think we're good now.
Huh? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Formally. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Brett, you didn't put the mic on.
Want us up here?
We'll sit up here.
Senator, no, you're
No, it's running a little late.
okay.
So you can sit.
Here.
We'll have the same. Maybe if you want to sit here, just sit here. The senator will sit next to you.
Okay.
Probably.
Oh, how are you? Good to be seen.
But I don't want to wait. I can talk.
Juliana, you have to tell me how good my speech is. Oh, this?
It's up to you. You tell me. Thank you everybody so much for coming. We're going to get started in just a couple more minutes because people are still arriving, okay? We want everybody to be here.
Yeah, did you get it? Okay.
The one right there that's right. I think it's on that side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Were you able to play?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know who This room is on the verge of getting a nice refresh. Just is long overdue, actually.
I feel like these microphones are like when we have our live. You know? Brett, I think the volume is, it's all coming out of that speaker thing there, but that might be for the microphone. Yeah. Here, we brought you one of these, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Just can't sit in front of the.
Yeah, so we'll. Just, yeah, for the projection, right?
Yeah, let's, you want to
Sure
share
this.
this?
Make sure there is
Sure.
All you do is hold.
Just the house. Okay.
Oh, you want this?
Test, test, test. Beautiful. Thank you.
I'll leave it in this note, yeah.
Just make sure you talk right.
Oh, yeah.
You got it.
Thank you.
Everybody holds it like this, I'm like, you
Not
gotta
me.
talk.
I might not be much fun.
Yeah,
That's how I am.
I'm loud enough. Little rock.
You know what your program looks like? I'm okay, thank you. I'm not kind of directed, I'm just kind of.
Welcome. Yes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get started. I apologize, all of you watching on YouTube Live. We have YouTube Live here. Thank you. And all of you here in our audience in the library, thank you for your patience. We just had a lot of people still arriving, and we wanted to make sure everybody didn't miss everything that we have ready to present to you. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Leanna Fercucci. I am the board chair of the Fullerton Collaborative. Those of you that are not aware of the Fullerton Collaborative is a nonprofit. We've been here in the city of Fullerton for many, many years, over 15 years, and we work together to do amazing work in our city, to do everything we can to make the city the best place it can be. And our mission states that the Fullerton Collaborative envisions a diverse and empowered community that lives in harmony and works collaboratively towards an economically secure, healthy, and safe environment where all children and adults can anticipate quality education and a promising future. So if you would like to learn more about the Fullerton Collaborative, please visit our website. But we are very, very pleased that Council Member Ahmad Zahra has asked us to partner with him for this very, very important presentation. We are recording this on YouTube Live. We will make this available for you to share with other people that you work with, family members, friends, anybody that you think could benefit from this presentation. We can make that available for you. You can visit our website and send us an email, and we can help you out with that. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to introduce you to Councilman Ahmad Zahra, and thank you very much for coming out today.
You can come in a little closer so we can actually see you in there. There you go. We might need to shift this around a little bit if anybody's there. So we can get properly. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming tonight. This is a very important topic, and my name is Councilmember Ahmad Zahra. I'm proud to represent District 5 in the city of Fullerton here, and I'm really honored to be part of this discussion and all of you here tonight. We have some distinguished guests, and I know our state senator is running a little late, but he's on his way. But I thought we can start by some introductions here, because I think I was reading the bios of our panelists, and I think their stories and their journeys are very significant. So bear with me. I really feel that we need to do that. Before that, though, I want to thank the collaborative, their entire team, Debbie, Leanna, Brett, Beverly, and everybody on the board for all the work that you do, and for also partnering with me on several occasions to do these town halls. I do want to thank the State Senator Tom Umberg's team, who are back there for any resource that you may need from the state. They are available. And I know that I believe our Supervisor Doug Chafee's team will be bringing some resources from the county, and they're up there on their way. I also want to thank the Fulton School District for providing the equipment for the interpretation for the Spanish speakers, and also the interpreter is Jose Sanchez back there from Continental Interpretation. Thank you for being here. And of course, I want to thank Igwith Muncy and Center for Healthy Neighborhoods for always being a good champion and community advocate and rallying people to come to events like this. And thank you, the Fulton Observer, also for promoting this event as well. Yeah. And I do, last but not least, I do want to thank our Fulton Library and our staff here, Judy Booth, and all the staff that have worked tirelessly to educate us in this community and provide us the resource here to also host these gatherings as well. So thank you to our Fulton Library. I do want to acknowledge school board member Ruthie Hanchett, who just walked in. And thank you for being here. All right, so I am going to start with our police chief, Bob Dunn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Chief Dunn joined the Fulton Police Department in January 2018. He began his career with the Anaheim Police Department in 1993. How old were you? Like
14.
14. He started as a police explorer, transitioned to a police cadet position, and was ultimately hired as an Anaheim police officer in 2001. He rose through the ranks and took many responsibilities throughout his career, from Anaheim PD's recruiting team, graffiti task force, community policing team officer, patrol and K-9 unit supervisors, public safety information officer, gang intervention, and much more. Very distinguished career. In January 2018, Chief Dunn joined the Fulton Police Department as police captain, responsible for all investigations, community services, forensic services, Fulton Type 1 jail facility, and nearly all departments' civilian professional staff. In August 2018, Chief Dunn was appointed acting chief of police, and in June of 2019, that was my first year on council, Chief Dunn was appointed the 21st chief of police in Fulton.
Good.
So, thank you. Chief Dunn earned a bachelor's degree from Cal State Long Beach and a master's of education from Boise State University. He is married to Maricela, an Anaheim police officer, and they reside in Southern California. His stepdaughter, Marissa, is a junior at California Baptist University, where she plays softball. So thank you, Chief Dunn, for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and welcome State Senator Tom Umberg. So, State Senator Tom Umberg is a retired U.S. Army colonel, former federal criminal prosecutor, 3-term state legislator, and was deputy drug czar for President Clinton. Senator Umberg served active military duty in 2009, leading the U.S. military effort to attack corruption within the Afghan army and police, for which he was awarded a Bronze Star Medal. He has been serving in the state Senate since 2018, representing the 34th district, which now Fulton is part of, and has chaired the Senate Elections Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee. He has authored 38 new state laws in the state Senate and has brought over $60 million in state funds to support various projects across the district. Hopefully he'll show us some love over the next 4 years.
I didn't bring my checkbook.
Senator Umberg lives in Orange County with his wife Robin, who is a retired brigadier general. They have 3 adult children and 6 grandchildren. We're honored to have you here. Now I'll introduce the Voices for Awareness team. Woo! Yeah. Andrea Thomas is the Executive Director of Voices for Awareness and Project Facing Fentanyl, which is home of National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day that happens on August 21st. Andrea was born in San Antonio, Texas, and relocated to Colorado at a young age, where she and her husband, Chuck, raised their family and continue to live. In June 2018, Andrea's oldest daughter, Ashley, took a counterfeit pill deceptively made with fentanyl. Just half a pill took Ashley's life almost instantly. A federal investigation into Ashley's death uncovered at least 8 other deaths caused by the same person. All of the victims died of fentanyl poisoning. In 2022, the defendant in Ashley's federal case was found guilty and sentenced to 2 life terms plus 2 20-year terms in prison. This case is the longest sentence received for counterfeit pills, resulting in death in the state of Colorado. Andrea found a devotion to bringing awareness to fentanyl prevention and self-harm through the tragedy of losing her own daughter, Ashley. The DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, has recognized Andrea for her efforts in bringing awareness nationwide and her extensive work in many areas of prevention and education. Andrea is an advisory board member for Partnerships for Safe Medicines and an honorary member of several fentanyl prevention groups. In addition to Andrea's work in fentanyl prevention, she raises and homeschools her grandson Daniel, who I believe is here, Ashley's son, and is the operations manager for her family's drilling equipment business. Last but not least, my friend Michael Fiore. Michael is the outreach coordinator for Voices for Awareness and Project Facing Fentanyl. Michael was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York City, and now resides in California, where the weather supposedly is nicer. You have a very interesting journey. Addiction was a common theme throughout Michael's life. His parents were both addicted. He lost 2 grandmothers to alcoholism and a grandfather and uncle to heroin. Michael's parents were good people. They provided for and loved him, but were not always present in his life. This made it easy for him to begin experimenting with drugs. Seeking validation from the outside world and not finding value in himself, drugs became the solution to his problems, and Michael's drug use lasted 20 years. He lived in and out of jails and institutions, during which he lost both his parents to AIDS. After 12 years of using high doses of methadone, Michael detoxed off methadone in 2021. While in treatment, Michael started his nonprofit Inspire to Inspire, working to support the recovery community, and now has become a resource for addicts across the country. Mike graduated from treatment in May 2022 and teamed up with Voices for Awareness. Michael understands the value of a person's story and believes that our stories lie in what we overcome, not what we have done. And I think that's a very important message. So thank you for being here. I know that we have a great panel, and each of our panelists will present something of what their work has been in this particular area. Fentanyl is a deadly disease. There is no safe dose, and we can go through all the signs and symptoms, but the reality is one pill can kill. That's all it takes. So the real danger is death. It is affecting our community in many ways. It affects the lives destroys the lives of families. So it's so important that we continue this conversation and spread the word and make sure that we are talking to our families, our neighbors about this and spreading the awareness. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a whole community to protect them. And I think this is what we are all here trying to do. So thank you for being here. And I want to pass this on first to our state senator. If you want to come in and tell us a little bit about the legislation that you're working on at the state level. Thank you.
First, let me thank you, Councilmember Zahra. The most effective thing we can do in terms of drug prevention, the most effective thing we can do in terms of issues concerning substance abuse is education and prevention. As the chief knows, we can't arrest our way out of this. And by you being here, you've demonstrated your commitment to do exactly that. And by you organizing this, Councilmember Zahra, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate what you're doing for the community. So thank you. A round of applause.
Yeah.
And before I get to some of the things we're doing in the legislature, I want to thank the two of you because you have a platform that we don't have, because you have experience, lived experience that we don't have. You're credible messengers, much more so than a guy who's in the legislature. And the pain and the grief and the suffering that you've endured and turning into something that benefits other people, we can't thank you enough. So thank you. And Chief, I know you've dedicated your life to this mission, so thank you as well on behalf of all the folks in our community. Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Zahra has mentioned the devastation that fentanyl's caused. I've been doing drugs a lot of, well, let me rephrase that. I have been involved in drug policy for most of my career, either as a prosecutor in several different iterations. I was a federal prosecutor here, or as you mentioned, as the deputy drug czar. I don't like that title, but that's under President Clinton. And it was clear to me in terms of drug policy that there are different ways, there are different tools, there are different things that we need to do. First is demand reduction. Demand reduction and prevention, that's critical. And education is the key component of demand reduction. I worked for a guy named General McCaffrey, who was the czar itself. And he used to say the most effective drug prevention tool is the kitchen table and the conversation at the kitchen table. Now, that doesn't always work, and so we need to do other things as well. In addition to prevention, treatment. We don't want folks to die, whether it's a family member or any other person in our community. And so treatment is a critical component. Also, reducing the supply is also a critical component. We need to do all those things. We need to do all those things in conjunction. In United States drug policy, we often historically focused on the supply side. And we're coming to the point where we're focused on each of those tools. In terms of the devastation, how many of you here, just raise your hand if it's impacted, if fentanyl has impacted your life in some fashion or some form? Okay, there's a lot of folks here. There's a lot of folks, and there's some folks here that didn't raise their hand, and I know it has impacted them. I know it has impacted them. 107,000 people died in the United States of fentanyl overdoses in the last 12 months. That's more than individuals killed in the Vietnam War, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and even Korea all combined. That's more than that. It is the leading cause right now of death of young people between the ages of 24 and 45. And it has increased exponentially over the last few years. If you had a chart, you'd see it start to rise and you see it start to peak. So it's our obligation, our collective obligation, and I suppose it's my special obligation to address some of the things that need to be done. And so what I want to do is just tell you a few things and ask for your help. Ask for your help. You are blessed to have two senators. I don't know if you're cursed or blessed, but nevertheless, you have two senators. As Councilmember Zahra mentioned a moment ago, I'm not new to the Senate, but I'm new to this area. Not completely new. My family moved to La Habra just a few years ago in 1975. But in terms of representing you, Senator Newman, who just coincidentally is my seat, there are 40 of us in the state Senate. Each of us represents about 1 million people. And because of the anomalies of what's called redistricting, for a short period of time, for 2 years, you will have two state senators. And Senator Newman is also committed to this cause. In fact, he may appear a little later on. He's coming back from Sacramento just a little later than I did today. So what are we doing? What am I doing? And what are we doing collectively, and how can you help? So there are four things. There are four things that I have to be focused on. Let me tell you about two in terms of the harm reduction side or the demand reduction side. One is that you're familiar with fentanyl strips. Are you guys familiar with fentanyl strips where you can test to see if the substance that you may have is fentanyl, or somebody has given you, or somebody you bought it. So what do you do with that? What do you do with it? You find out you bought some fentanyl? Well, you call the police. Now, we want people to call the police. We want people, if someone's overdosing, to call for rescue. We want them to call 911. We don't want them to be afraid to call 911 if someone's overdosing. So this bill simply says, look, if someone's overdosing, you, somebody else, or you just acquired, whatever fashion you've acquired it, maybe you're a parent and you found it and you've tested it, turns out to have some fentanyl in it, you can call the police, you can call the fire department, you can report that. Your report, what you said on the phone, that information, that communication cannot be used against you, nor can anything, it's a legal term, derivative of that be used against you. Now, it's not a complete get out of jail free card. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can use, sell, do whatever you want with fentanyl, but it does mean that we want you to make sure that no one dies because you're afraid to let the police know. No one dies because you're afraid to call 911. That's one thing that we're doing, okay? It's not a law yet, it's just a bill right now. It needs to get enacted. Number two, fentanyl is often sold, maybe even most often sold, through social media, in particular Snapchat, right? You're all familiar with, I'm actually not, I don't do social media because I'm, old and gray. But in any event, I am informed that fentanyl and other illegal substances are often sold on Snapchat. And when we become aware, when the police become aware, or others become aware that there's a platform, an address, an individual, or even an organization that's using a particular handle or platform, that when we tell Snapchat or we tell whatever social media platform is, you must take this down. We notify. If they don't take it down in 48 hours, you can go to court and you get an injunction. City attorney or even individual gets an injunction to take it down, so they no longer can be using that modality for selling drugs. Next is that, sadly, and we've got real life illustrations of that right now. Sadly, folks who have sold fentanyl, one time, if you get convicted, this is the third bill. If you get convicted of selling fentanyl, right? Whether you know it or not know it, if you're convicted of selling fentanyl, you're going to know you sold fentanyl. If you do it again, because you're going to be told, the judge is going to tell you, Mr. X, you are now told you sold a substance with fentanyl. If you do this again, if you sell a substance with fentanyl again, or a fentanyl derivative, and someone dies, you can be charged with murder. Now, the purpose of that admonishment, that purpose of that warning, is a prevention purpose. To tell that person, you're on notice now, that this is very harmful. There's no excuse now. If you do it again and someone dies, then you're going to be, you're going to be placed in a location where you can't sell again, where you can't distribute again. And then the last thing is a resolution to do exactly what you're doing here. The state resolution to have a National Fentanyl Day to raise the visibility, You all here, you wouldn't be here if you weren't concerned. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know about the fentanyl crisis. But there are many people. It is amazing to me how many people are completely unaware. And in particular, young people. Who purchase, receive, somehow think they're getting, whatever it is, Oxycontin or whatever it is they think they're getting. It is more and more prevalent that pill, that substance, that compound is laced with fentanyl. And as Councilmember Zahra mentioned a little while ago, the world is a very different world. That I see some folks here that, maybe a little closer to my age than they are to the children here. The world's a very different world now. It's very, very dangerous. It is very, very, very dangerous, as illustrated by the over 100,000 people who have died here in the last year. So I'm really privileged to have wonderful staff. If they raise their hand at the back, our district director is here, Ana Gonzalez, David Ochoa, our senior advisor who's come down from Sacramento, Jackie Koenig is here. And I invite you, they'll be happy to give you information as to how to influence this legislation. Seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? Seems like, gosh, who's going to vote against this stuff? Well, we have challenges, so your help would be most appreciated. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the chief, or I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Zahra, and he's going to turn it over to somebody here. So here we go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like you said, if anybody wants to get more information on your bills or other bills that are in the Senate, they can talk to your staff and they can provide you with that information. Or you can email me. I was lucky to have our public affairs person give me a summary of all the bills. I'm happy to provide that to anyone who would like to have it seat all the bills that are there. Now, of course, Chief Dunn. Thank you.
So I timed myself a little earlier. I got about an hour and 15 minutes. I hope the chairs are comfortable. First of all, thank you for having me tonight, and I'm honored to be here to talk to you about this very important subject. I think a lot cannot be understated what we've talked about so far, the loss that people are experiencing, the prevalence of this particular drug in our communities right now, especially in Fullerton at this time. Fullerton is a very dynamic city. We have a lot of people who come here every day that are not necessarily part of our, what we count in our census, but are here to visit or attend school, or we're home right now to a temporary homeless shelter. And we've recently opened our doors to folks from other towns that have some strong addiction issues that are here in our communities. And then we also are home to a very highly utilized methadone clinic that's right here near our downtown. So our officers over the course of time have become very experienced in encountering folks who have addiction issues and oftentimes are overdosing. So I think I would say from the police department perspective, one thing is we've become part of that emergency response. More from the medical side, we carry naloxone in all of our cars now. Every officer is assigned that, and I did bring a video we'll show in a little bit of us bringing someone back to life and how it does work when we get there in time. I mean, we don't drive big red fire trucks, and we're not often as highly regarded as our partners in the fire department, but our cars are a lot faster. We're a lot more nimble. We can get there before they get there. And so anyone who's had someone pass away from this or has come up on someone who has overdosed knows that time is of the essence. So the quicker we can get there and get that dose in there, the better chance of survival that person has. And so for us, it's been a change, kind of like in mission, right? We don't normally get considered part of that emergency medical response, but law enforcement in this area has become a lot more of those first responders. It also brings another level of danger to our officers, right? We get exposed to a substance that our officers are not using frequently, and so they can touch or be exposed to. And sometimes, in 2 cases, we've had officers hospitalized from what we suspect to be an exposure to fentanyl. So it has become something also that we have to train our officers on. So we've started tracking the calls that we get where fentanyl is related to try to get a sense of, where in our city that we're seeing a concentration of these particular incidents. Are we trained? Do we have the right equipment and the training for our officers to respond appropriately to those? And so that is kind of one strategy. The other part is there is an enforcement component. I think that it cannot be understated. Yes, when people are under the influence, can they be arrested? Sure. I think anybody who has ever been through the system in that way or has an addiction issue knows that isn't necessarily going to solve your problem. It is a tool that we can utilize, but I think most of our officers would understand that arresting someone under the influence is going to get them off the drug. And in fact, and sometimes it can kind of restart their journey back to the beginning. And so we don't necessarily think that that's the best tactic, but it is a tactic. It depends on the situation we're encountering, because sometimes folks that are under the influence will go to a particular location and become problematic for those who run a business or something like that. And certainly our responsibility is to serve those folks as well. And so we want to do that in a way that recognizes that addiction is more a medical problem than it is necessarily a legal problem, but also that when it starts to infringe on other people's ability to operate without, hostile situations or their business is affected, then that's an application for law enforcement. So we do a fair deal of that, especially in areas right now where we have some pickup locations for our cold weather shelter. We're getting a lot of calls from those business owners, and we're spending a lot of time out there. One, doing outreach to people who have addiction issues and trying to get them into a situation where they can get some help if they want it. But also, if the person is causing a disturbance, then we will take enforcement action necessary. But I think the most important thing that law enforcement is doing, besides being part of that emergency medical response, is trying to stem the tide. Where is this coming from? How can we partner as a law enforcement agency with those of us around? It's not something that's specific to Fullerton. It isn't specific to a social economic class. This is hitting everyone everywhere, and it's incredibly deadly. And so what we have done is recently we had our narcotics team cross-sworn as DEA agents, so we can take, when we get big seizures, we have had 2 seizures as a unit of over 1 million pills each. And we've been able to take those cases federally, and we're trying to send the message that we're not going to have it in our community, and we're going to try to cut the supply off. And then what was kind of shocking to me, actually, when I was talking to the narcotics investigators today, is how inexpensive this particular drug has become. And so it's easier for people who have that issue to avail themselves to it. In the case of the million pills, they were 75 cents a pill. And that, it's very easy for folks to attain that. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to keep that from even getting to our community. So we spend a lot of time working with our regional partners and our federal partners to try to stem the supply that's coming into our communities. And then respond to calls for service when people ask us to be there to try to mitigate the effects of fentanyl in neighborhoods. And then also be a part of that. And I think probably the most important mission we have right now is trying to get there to save people's lives. And then we can worry about how we get them on a better path as long as they're still with us. And so I don't want to take up too much of your time with the law enforcement because I'm sure there'll be a ton of questions when we get to the question and answer period about what we do and how we do it and why we do some of the things we do. And I'd be happy to answer all those. You are in a city where our police department is one of 3 police departments in the state of California who's auzed to teach drug recognition expertise to law enforcement officers. So it's the California Highway Patrol, the Los Angeles Police Department, and the Fullerton Police Department. So, and it's really interesting curriculum. It takes the officers a long, long time to be certified, but what that does is it allows our officers to recognize the signs that people are under the influence a lot sooner than most other agencies. And so then we can respond appropriately to those things. And so we're very fortunate to be one of the agencies that does that, and kind of a point of particular pride for our organization. And so you are in a place where our officers are probably more trained than most that are around us here. So with that, I'll introduce. Oh, I forgot about the video. So I brought this video because I wanted to highlight the importance of, one, law enforcement as that kind of first response to emergency medical situation, and 2, how the introduction of Narcan kind of contemporaneous to someone's overdose can bring them back. And you're going to see this kind of interesting. We don't know that this particular individual overdosed on fentanyl necessarily, but certainly there was narcotics involved. This is near the intersection of Harbor and Orange Store. Those of you from the area, you'll notice some of the landmarks around there. But go ahead. And the other thing here is so one of the officers here is a brand new officer, never has introduced Narcan before, and it's important for officers to get used to that feeling because we don't normally give people medicine, right? And so you're going to hear the field training officer talking the officer through the introduction. So I think it's also helpful for you to understand if you do have this in your house, because now a lot of folks are getting this and they're possessing it, that how you would actually administer it.
Still breathing. But out there, we're out with them. We're on the east side of the 129. We'll be out with them. It's going to be the east side of the box. West of east.
So again, fresh out of the academy, first experience giving someone medicine necessarily.
Let's go, dude. Circle, circle. Yeah. Far in there. Far in there. Finish for one dark in the foot and start CPR. No. He's ready.
So we'll do the regular protocols for CPR. Now he's already coming back within seconds.
Grab it, man. Grab it.
No, it's not.
All right. What's your name, bro?
Where's that?
Sorry?
Where's that?
Be very gentle. 3 a.m. Wake up. You awake?
Yeah.
And all this is occurring before the paramedics have arrived. So it just give you an idea of how long it would take for the actual dosage if our officers didn't have it at their disposal. I had him keep it going a little longer because I want you to see he's able to stand up and walk away within minutes of being near death.
I'll get the firefighter and check you out, okay? Otherwise, we'll
Just gives you a little bit of perspective. So with that, sir, now I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Chief, for that. And I know you had pretty big process. Yes.
This is a $2 million.
Yeah, so our Fulton PD is doing some really good work, and as you see, it's a life saved here. Before we move on to the next phase of our presentation, first I want to acknowledge Dr. Shana Charles, council member in Fulton. And in the interest of time for our chief, because I know he's got work to do out there in the streets, and of course our state senator. I wanted to open up now this segment, for any questions from the audience to either our state senator or our police chief. We can start. Young lady, yes.
For the schools, if there was a situation like that had happened in schools, would you do the same thing, or would it be different considering there could be like kids like 5, could be 5, or about my age, 19? How would you handle that?
So the question is how to handle a response fentanyl overdose for children and youth.
Sure. So you're okay with it? I'm going to sit and address your question. So the first thing we would do is start EMS, right? We want the actual experts, the firefighters, to start on their way, they're paramedics. But then, yes, we could give doses depending on what symptoms we're seeing, whether they were exposed and maybe didn't actually ingest the narcotic. Maybe their relative did or their teacher did, not that this ever happened in Fullerton, so those who are with the teacher don't. I'm not insinuating that. But also, we do all of that in concert with the schools. Our school teachers, our school administrators are also well versed. We are very fortunate. I'm not just saying this. We are incredibly fortunate in this city. We have a very, very strong relationship with both the elementary school and the high school district. We actually have officers in the high schools. And so we work almost like a member of their staff and they're a member of our staff. So we would either be augmenting what they're doing or we would be leading the charge and waiting for our EMS partners to get there. But yes, we could absolutely give the dose. The officers that are there would have it.
There's a bill to provide for the antidote in all. There's a bill pending. You may even have the bill number if you don't, to require and provide the antidote in all. I believe it's all high schools.
Yeah, school nurses would have.
Yeah, so the school nurses have it, or I think other administrators as well. Yeah.
All right.
So I have a question. I believe in June, there was a fentanyl awareness concert that the city put on. It had a really good turnout because I volunteered there. Is there anything that you guys are planning in the future that's going to be like that? Because I just know that there was it was a good turnout and good things came of it. Just to bring awareness to the city.
Yes.
Is there anything planned for the future? And then also, have you ever considered having some sort of alert, like maybe through social media, kind of like an Amber Alert going off of what kind of fentanyl overdoses are going on geographically to alert that this stuff is still affecting people, it's still going on, so they could say this. I just got an alert, whether it's through Facebook or just like an Amber Alert, your phone would go off showing where they are, because it could save a life. If I know that I just picked up a pill from this block from Orange Street or whatever it is, and there was just now a death there, maybe I'm not going to take that pill. I don't know the exact address, but it'll give you like maybe a circumference of the surrounding area. It could save a life.
So the questions were, what is the city of Fulton doing as far as other programs or awareness programs? Obviously we're hosting this town hall as a step, and I'm hoping that we can collaborate with continued collaboration with Voices for Awareness and other organizations. So you come to me and I'll make it happen. And I know Dr. Shana Charles here is also willing to do something in her district as well. So we're happy to do some more work. And as far as the Amber Alert for any fentanyl overdoses or pills or anything like that, I'd pass that to the chief.
I can give you a little bit of what you could do now, and then I think the actual succinctly drilling down to say it was fentanyl would be very difficult at the time of call. And oftentimes we're not alerted to that being the actual cause of death till months later. But if you've ever heard of Pulse Point, there's an app you can download on your phone, and you can actually choose by city, and you can put in there if you want to know about a medical aid in a particular neighborhood, it would do it by circumference. It just, I don't know that there would be the ability to say fentanyl at the time that the call
Maybe
comes
possible
It-
fentanyl overdose on Orange and Lakeview, for instance,
Yeah,
or
it-
whatever, just to
I
kind
think
of
the
give
term
a-
overdose might be on there. I just don't know if fentanyl would be on there. And that's not my wheelhouse. I don't run the fire side because that's where the call would go. But I do know on Pulse Point right now, you could download it and see a medical aid possible overdose on there, and it would pop up on your phone if you wanted to get the alert. And it's not specific to Fullerton. It's, I mean, I think they even have like New York Fire and everything's on there. So
If I may add, the HIDA programs have a lot of emergency outreach like you're speaking of. And they work with the community. So they would work with your police department and your other law enforcement agencies. They have, at that point, if there was an emergency situation where you had a lot of people going down, say in the weekend,
Yeah.
then you would then alert your harm reduction. You would alert all of your media. It's not to put a scare into the community and cause a frenzy. It's to make people aware
Right.
that there's something come in and we have a situation where many people are going down. And so if you reach out to your law enforcement and or local HIDA, they could probably help this area get back in place.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got, Chief.
It looked kind of like maybe the fellow with the In-N-Out burger over here in Fullerton that overdosed. What's the typical thing that happens once he's brought to? You have a talking to him, does he get taken to jail? What usually happens?
So what happens after arrest, when you restore somebody's consciousness, right?
So he would go to the hospital through normal protocols. I suppose he could refuse depending on his level of consciousness. I mean, they're not going to force someone to go unless his level of consciousness is in and out, and then they can actually take him for further review. But it would be medically led and law enforcement supported. It wouldn't ultimately and immediately result in his transportation to jail for being under the influence. It would yield to the medical side first. Now, we would want to know, where did you get the stuff? Are we going to expect multiple people to go down because you all bought from the same person? Or is there something we can do to not have this happen to somebody else? I think you can see it there, but clearly one of his friends had called for him because they thought he was dying. And so we can talk to those folks and try to get the intelligence we need to find out where it's coming from. And I think I mentioned this in the presentation portion, but that's really where we're going to see the biggest effect, if we can affect how it gets to them, not necessarily arresting the individual who has the addiction issue.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go to this side and come back here.
So I just reconnected with the Fullerton School District, and I know that Berryman is also here representing. We just recently approved for this antidote to be at every single school in our elementary schools. To train our staff so we can have that response needed for adults or kids. But my question for you, Chief, then, is I know fentanyl is usually within something else. People don't buy fentanyl. So can you tell us the trends in Fullerton, what it looks like, what people are thinking they're buying when they're being, when this is happening?
So the fentanyl is being disguised in other types of medicines or drugs, counterfeit drugs. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it's so deadly is because it really is on a lot of things. And so it's hard to say if there's one in particular. We have gotten some seizures of pills, and I think maybe that's even the easiest way to identify it for us. Like, if we're going to see those types of pills, we're going to go, it's probably fentanyl. You know what I mean? We do, so part of that drug recognition expert class is we do bring folks to our mural room, which is in the front of our station, and they're evaluated by officers who are trying to learn about the different signs and symptoms people display when they're using different types of drugs. And there was a lady in there that had it in a vial, and she uses a lot. Like, if we would have opened that and touched, a drop, we would all die in that room. But she could use it because she's built up her resistance over the course of time. And so it takes many forms, and I think that's part of the reason why it's so deadly, and its expense is pretty low. But it's really tough to identify, and people do unknowingly take it, and then they go into medical arrest.
Is it more than what they think are prescription drugs that we're seeing in Fullerton? Like, what does that look like?
I don't think there's any one over the other that is showing up more prevalently. And again, I think with the, and I'm not blaming this on, but with the folks coming into our town that are here for the cold weather option, I think we're seeing different forms come in and kind of spreading in that particular location more than most, because in other cities, there is another kind of supply coming in. So I don't really have a good answer as to what is more prevalent. As far as our enforcement action that we're seeing, we're taking a lot of pills.
So we'll have, Rupa, we'll have some more questions later on, but one question, I know the gentleman here had a question.
Thanks. I'd like to, as I applaud your officer for doing such a fine job. I was wondering if there's any way you can make it more accessible instead of having to go into the back of the car. It seemed like a very small device. If maybe they could carry it on, or that if it doesn't happen that often, or if it could just be more accessible, because time is very important in this situation.
Sure. So they're assigned to each officer. Each officer has a gear bag. They're actually like in I don't know how to describe it to you. You know, like an old pencil bag when you're in school that has a carabiner on it.
Yeah.
So they usually just clip it on the outside of their bag and it stays with it. And then every year we have to do an inspection. And if they haven't used it, we replace it with new.
Okay.
And then we medically discard the old. If they use it, then they go right to our training unit who has a cache at hand, and it gets replaced immediately. So it's always available in the field. And so when you see two officers riding, so usually if in a one officer car, my gear bag would be next to me on the passenger seat and I would have immediate access. But when you have two officers in a car, they have to keep their gear in the back. So, and that's where our first aid kit is. They're very familiar with the process of going to get it. So, but what you saw there is more indicative of a two-person car.
So thank you very much, Chief Dunn and Senator Tom Umberg, for your presentations today. You're free to obviously stay. I know you're in the interest of time, if you'd like to go, that's up to you as well. I know before the senator leaves and we start our presentation, I believe there's a certificate from the Senate to Andrea and Mike.
Oh, wow.
So let me just, at the outset, I recognize that they have turned their incredible tragedy and pain into a benefit for all of us. And so it's appropriate that the California State Senate recognizes your work. So Andrea, on behalf of the California State Senate, can I present you with this certificate? Mike, I'll show you the inside. On behalf of the California State Senate and all of us, thank you.
All right, now I'm going to pass it on to both Andrea and Mike to give their presentation. I know it's a dynamic and very interesting one for sure. So there you go, all yours.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate you having us here so much, Councilman. We met him at the event that you were speaking of over the summer. And he was very direct and very to the point when he came to us to introduce himself and let us know that he was very concerned about his community and that he wanted to get the word out in your area. So we appreciate when you have people in your community, leaders in your community that do this type of work, because without them, you know that you probably wouldn't get very far. So thank you. Thank you. So I'm Andrea again with Facing Fentanyl. And we're going to go through just a quick presentation before we show you a video of some other folks that have been impacted by fentanyl. So when the senator was speaking about if you were looking at a chart, this is what he was talking about. You can see with fentanyl that in the, well, this one does not have a date, but in around 2016, let's go back to 2009. You can see this black line, this was heroin use, and prescription opioids is the yellow, I believe. It's not very clear here. And we had this spike go up. That's synthetic opioids. So if you looked at it, and this is only to 2018, if you looked at a chart today, this line would be clear to the ceiling with synthetic opioids. That's the number of deaths. That's how the drug landscape totally changed. So because this drug landscape has changed, we've got to change with it, right? There's two types of fentanyl. A lot of times when you're watching the news, they'll be talking about fentanyl and they'll show a prescription type of fentanyl that's used in a hospital. This is not the problem. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about illicit fentanyl that's made in a clandestine lab somewhere out in the jungle or in some room with people pressing these pills or adding it into other drugs. Very dangerous. If you were to dump a powdered fentanyl into a pot, it would clump up. And that's why many times if you, when we talk about testing pills, well, this is great that there are all of these tools out there. Tools in your toolbox are great. But if you had a pill and you were going to take that extra measure to test it, you would have to dissolve the entire pill to know where fentanyl was. It's like, many people call it the chocolate chip cookie theory, right? So the chips are spread out in the cookie, but you don't really know where the fentanyl is. So we do not want to give people a false representation of safety. There is no safe dose, like the councilman said, of fentanyl. These are counterfeit pills and regular prescriptions. And in many cases, unless you had a photo like this side by side, and even in this photo, you don't know which one is counterfeit. And so that is why we say do not take anything that's not prescribed to you by your doctor and purchased in a legitimate American pharmacy. You may have heard recently in the news that across the border or very close to home, medications in pharmacies are being sold that are counterfeits. There are all types of counterfeit drugs, not all made with fentanyl, most very dangerous. Many made, if they don't have contain fentanyl in them, they may be a cancer drug that you think you're buying cheaper across the border. And it's just filler. It's not even doing anything for you. So you do not want to purchase anywhere but a legitimate pharmacy. Fentanyl's in everything. It's not just in pills. It's in cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin. We're seeing it in marijuana. So Mike will kind of break that down for you in a moment, but there's fentanyl in everything that we're seeing out there. Adderall right now, something that's prevalent in colleges, right? It's a drug that's prescribed to many people. The college students, you see over the years, were using Adderall in college when they were studying. They needed to focus. It's killing them now. They're purchasing these pills that look like a prescription pill and they're actually counterfeit. Which one are you gonna get? There's no smell, there's no taste to fentanyl. So you can't identify it. You couldn't take one of those pills and think that it was going to look any different. These are just signs of overdose. Overdose, you know, if you look at someone and their nails are turning purple or they're making gurgly sounds, frothing at the mouth, that would be an emergency situation. You would want to call 911 right away and use naloxone if you had it to carry with you. Don't wait till it's too late. We've got naloxone over here. We use a naloxone called Cloxado. It's an 8 milligram versus a 4 milligram, which you'll find in other brands. All the brands are good. They're all safe. We choose Cloxado because of the 8 milligram. If they would have had that on scene when my daughter was overdosing, it may have saved her life. You definitely want to call 911. Naloxone's very easy to use. We'll hand this out to you at the end, and we'll show you how to use it if you need to know how to use it. Fentanyl is the most dangerous, most deadly drug that we've ever seen. It takes 2 milligrams or less to take a life. Now we're seeing xylazine made with fentanyl. So the cartels, this isn't something that's just happening in the United States, that people are adding xylazine to their fentanyl as if it wasn't already bad enough. We had an alert come down from DEA this week that says that the cartels are shipping in fentanyl that has xylazine in it. Xylazine is a horse tranquilizer. if you were to shoot fentanyl, that needle mark could potentially make begin an abscess on your arm or leg, wherever you. And we're seeing this zombie effect that's happening to people. These pictures are so graphic and so disturbing. We're losing an entire generation to these drugs. Social media, and I'm sorry I'm going so fast. We have so much more to go through, but social media. You know, a lot of people think that when you lose a child or a family member to a drug, that it has, you know, it was a parenting issue, right? What were we doing in our homes? Your children do not have to be in a dark alley. They don't have to be hanging around with a bad group of kids. They don't have to have absentee parents to die from fentanyl. There's just, this is happening to everyone. Social media is, all of our kids are on social media. We went through COVID, this time of COVID, and our kids were lost in their phones and in social media. And distributors perfected this, right? They figured out how they were gonna get to our children through social media. So you can be sitting across the table from your child at dinner and a distributor sitting there with them at your table. There are drug menus that can be accessed very simply, and the drugs delivered right to your home. So when you leave, there is a list at our table of emojis, of those cute little faces that you see. And they're actually drug transactions that may be happening on your child's phone. So please grab that list before you leave. Teens. So the senator spoke about the group of, I believe he said 25 to 55. We say 18 to 45. But now we know that teens 14 and under, we're seeing them, the death rate for teens has risen to 77%, raised to, or due to fentanyl poisoning. And so we're losing kids, even babies. These are pictures from some of the campaign that we have this year, and these are small babies that were able to access fentanyl. We really want to talk to you about being the change. I'm going to give Mike the microphone, and he's got a lot to tell you about how we break this down, and I'm going to go grab a couple of things. And he is the change. He is hope. We have begun working last year with people in recovery. They walk the same walk with us. They have lived experience, and they're reaching out to our youth, telling them about prevention. And so everyone can make a difference, not just moms and families like me that have lost a child, but people with lived experience like Michael are making a lot of change in your community. So
first, I do want to thank Councilmember Zahra. Fulton's very lucky to have you. Boots on the ground, very eager to bring prevention and awareness. Councilmember Charles, good to see you again. So a little bit layman's terms, my presentation is a little bit different than what you've been hearing because you're going to hear passion. The passion is because there's no more time to waste, right? So I only know one way to let this come out. So forgive me a little bit, right? So we say the word overdose. A lot of this prevention awareness is going to come from word of mouth, from people to people. We're saying the word overdose, and what that's doing in our society is, I think, giving people a misconception on how deadly fentanyl is. The definition of overdose means the excessive use of drugs. Andrea's daughter, Ashley, took a half a pill. That is not an excessive use of drugs. That is a poisoning. We need to start spreading the word poisoning because I think the kids that want to take one pill are not going to think they're going to overdose, because who would think that one pill would be considered an overdose? Like we said before, there is no safe dose when it comes to fentanyl. We need to start spreading the right word, using the right terminology. The word laced. I think someone had asked a question. Expect everything to have fentanyl in it right now. Everything. I sold drugs. When I sold drugs, we cut it with a lesser agent. The drugs are being cut with a stronger agent because it's 50 to 100 times stronger than anything they've ever seen in the streets. The word lace means the minority of. It is no longer the minority of what's being picked up. But the minority is whatever drug they think they're picking up now. We need to start spreading the awareness. These kids are dying every 5 minutes. I am one that believes that our children are being targeted because the kids that are dying are the non-addicts. Someone like me has a lot of tolerance. 2 milligrams is not a lethal dose for us. It's the recreational user. You say overdose, recreational user that's using a little bit on the weekend doesn't think anything's going to happen to him. This is not just a drug addict's problem anymore. This is everybody's problem. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, God bless, and I'm happy for you. But it's only a matter of time before this comes to your doorstep. Ignorance is bliss. If you do not allow this to go away with ignorance, there's information that you need when you come to our booth or facing fentanyl now. One of the things I think that needs to be overcome is this stigma of how people look at addicts. We are your secret weapon. If your child is in darkness or if you don't understand how to help your child, listen, both my parents were addicts. I didn't listen to them. There's communities, there's resources we can provide you with so you can understand your child, maybe help someone in your family. Because tough love does not work with us. Or if you just want to understand what's going on, you and your child can come hang out with us. I pray everyone gets to meet an addict in recovery. I really do, because we're the most generous, articulate, intelligent people there is. 9/11, what happens in our country happens, what happened at 9/11 happens in our country every 2 weeks. I lived in New York City at 9/11. Either you knew someone that died in 9/11 or you knew someone that died in 9/11. Fentanyl is affecting us the same way. This is a weapon of mass destruction. We're being exterminated. Our children are being targeted because I believe they are our future. If you look at medieval times, look at history, large empires will require payment of children from smaller empires so you couldn't build your army. They are preventing our future. Our children are our future. You need the information, you need the awareness. The best thing that we could do, our army has many facets, right? So we have our legislation, we have our police. We cannot put it on them no more. This is not just their problem. There's many facets to our army. We are the ones, the boots on the ground. We are the ones that have to get involved. Get involved with your schools. Go to your PTA. Find out what legislation's doing. Go to City Hall. How could you help? Just hoping that this goes away. It's not going to go away. This is not going away. You just heard about xylazine. We're going to get to the point that we, unfortunately, hope fentanyl was our only problem. And it's not. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. We're being exterminated. This is a weapon of mass destruction. This is not a joke. This is not going nowhere. Something's not your problem until it becomes your problem. Then when it becomes your problem, you're wondering why nothing's being done about the problem. So become part of the solution. Come speak to us. We have education. We have our National Day. We would love everyone to become a supporter of the National Day. And I just want to, and you guys are very lucky to have this council member right here. Very lucky. Thank you.
Our school board member in the back.
Yes.
So our National Day this year, our families put these opioid reversal kits together, but what's really great about our kits is they have education with them, and that's what we want you to have, to start the conversation in your schools. And maybe you never need the antidote then. It's a project that our families are working on this year for the National Day event in August, and we'd like to donate 10 of these to your school district. And if you need any more, get with us. But we want to do that because it's very simple. So the video that you'll see coming up is the video that will come with your kit. And then we'll kind of guide you through it. So we hope you can use this.
Thank you very much, Andrea and Mike, for that. I really want to thank everyone for being here. If we are to really counter this, we have to be the change, like they said, and spread the word, and let's be all part of the solution. Again, I want to acknowledge everybody who's been here, who's here tonight. I did forget to mention that Beverly Berryman is also a school board member. She wears many hats as part of the collaborative, so sometimes I get those confused, but I just wanted to. I would have felt guilty not to mentioning that. Next, we will be showing a video, Dead on Arrival. It is available on YouTube as well. If you don't, if you want to spread the word about it, it's also available in Espanol. It's dubbed, and for the folks who would like it in Spanish, I will provide you with that link afterwards. So let me know, and then you can share it. But tonight we will play, just for the interest of time, the English version of it. You're welcome to stay. We will have, it's a 20-minute video. I don't know, would you like the Q&A now with, and then later the video, or would you like to stay until after the video and ask some questions? Q&A now?
Q&A.
All right, let's open it up to questions for the audience. Okay, young lady.
I don't have a question, I have a statement. I'm part of a NARDON group here in Fullerton. I just lost my son to this 3 months ago. And we're having an educational session about Narcan, which is part of the brand names of the antidote. And it's on April 19th.
Come up here.
I don't want to come up. Okay, sorry. But it's on April 19th, and you can go on narnon.org, I think it is, and find the meeting. It's at the Presbyterian. I don't know what kind of church it is. The one that's on Harbor and Las Palmas. That's where we have our meetings every Wednesday night. The Lutheran Church, yeah. And they're having a educational seminar on how to use this. I carry it with me every day. It didn't help my son because I wasn't with him, but learn. That's all I'm going to say.
So, sorry for your loss. We will make sure that we have this information again from you, and we'll share it and make sure.
You can push it out to the collaborative.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. All right, council member.
So thank you so much for being here, and I'm sorry I'm not gonna be able to stay for the video, but I will absolutely watch it at home and make sure to distribute it. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a college professor at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm a college professor at Cal State Fullerton, and this issue thankfully has not yet really hit our campus, but I keep feeling like it's just a matter of time, and it's possible maybe it's hit and they're not telling us about it. Because we have thousands of students living on campus. And I really feel it's so important that as a professor, I'm gonna take some of this and keep it with me, keep it in my office, make sure we have it. But if you could also talk about it, it's wonderful you're donating some of these kits. California is going to be making Narcan on a generic basis pretty soon. They're gonna start producing it, so we'll have it more widely available. But right now, if folks aren't able to take some, or maybe you run out tonight, how do you know other ways that they can have access to this so that they can have it available in their homes or wherever their workplaces are, wherever they need to get it?
Yes, so most states have I've just lost all of my words. Most states have a program where the schools, law enforcement can access naloxone. And many times if you reach out to your law enforcement, they get this in bulk. There's a bulk fund where this product can be be reached. You can also go to your pharmacy. You can always get a hold of us or your council members, and they can direct you to us so that you can also get this. The access, this should be everywhere, not just in schools. This should be in the movie theater, in the mall, in the restaurant, everywhere. Because people don't just go down in certain places. It's happening everywhere. So we'll get some information, and I'm sure that your councilman may put it on his website if we can get them for you.
Can I just add to that, if you go to endoverdose.net, you will watch a short video there, and they will actually send you Narcan.
And overdose.net. And overdose.net, and you'll be able to get one of these kits. And we will provide it. I know the county also has resources to access this. So do we have county folks here? No, but if you'd like, go to the County of Orange website, and they have some resources available. All right. Question.
Hi, my name is Zahra. I'm here as a parent, actually. So I have one son in prison due to drug and alcohol disease and mental health issues, and I have another one that's living in a university. So I have empowered both my boys since they were young in high school and in college. So when I was given my medication, I've been through multiple surgeries, and I was offered Narcan. I was like, I'm not going to overdose on anything. Why the heck would I? Oh, hold on a second.
reality, right? Whether or not it's my children, but they're around other folks. And so I just took it, and just as I give my kids tampons to give to young girls that are around, with them in their car, I was like, you take Narcan with you, and you put it in your car, and you put it in your book bag, and whenever you go to that party, like I'm believing the best for our youth, but I'm also, in reality, because I was also one, and I also ditched, and I also went to parties, and so my son actually used it twice, one in high school for someone that he absolutely didn't know, and I taught him to use it. I had a lot of narcotics because I had a lot of surgeries, so they always gave it to me for free, and so I always had it with him, and I would just go, here, you never know, you never know. At university, he's in a fraternity now, so he was in high school, and now at the fraternity, he's used it again. And so my question now is, I love that you're here, is what are we doing to get it in their hands? And all the fraternities, all the sororities, like, let's just get it all there, because they need to be empowered, we need to save more lives, and get rid of the freaking stigma of it all.
Yeah, so the question is, how do we get this Narcan and these kids to the widest possible number of people?
So I'm going to answer because she specifically said how do we get into the fraternities and the sororities and campus. And I will tell you, as a faculty member, they're not doing anything that they're publicizing at all. And I'm in the public health department. So we're actually very connected to the Student Wellness Center. I hear a lot about what we're doing on reproductive health, which is wonderful. Fully support all of that. A lot about mental health, also wonderful. Fully support all of that. I've heard zero about any of this, which means that's the first thing I'm going to do tomorrow when I go to work. Our spring break is next week. I mean, I'm going to go and connect with the Student Wellness Center. One of my graduates for the MPH actually runs the place, so I know her, and I'm just going to ask her, what are we doing? And if we're not doing anything now, we need to be doing something. It needs to be in the dorms. It needs to be in the hands of the residents.
That's right.
The residence halls, all of these things, all the professors. We need to be talking about this more. So we'll do more.
Yeah, So my suggestion is that we need to become one voice, right? One person doing it alone is not enough. We all need to start knocking down doors and asking schools and going to colleges, why ain't it there? How is my child protected? What happens if it happens? Because after 4 seconds of oxygen deprivation to the brain, there's brain damage. 4 minutes. It's not a long time. So we all need to start coming together. We all need to become one voice. We need to get louder and louder and louder until things start to change. It's not going to change on its own. It's up to us.
My name's Adrian. I wanted to ask a question. My brother passed away on the 13th of last year from fentanyl overdose. They found him in Las Vegas, killed over, and didn't have enough time to get to him. So he had been sitting in his apartment for about a week. He was already decomposing. Now, the question is because I took Narcan training, an 8-hour course with an instructor. Because of this, and because I wanted to be in the field of helping other people, so I became a Metro ambassador for the LA County, which is part of the Union Station in LA. And the thing is they wanted us Narcan trained, but we weren't allowed to use it. And it was like kind of defeated the purpose, because it's like we went through all this training and we can't even Narcan anybody. And I keep it on me, by the way, at all times, because you never know. And I keep 2 nasal sprays of 4 milligrams each. I keep those with me. I think I saw that on the screen there that you guys showed. But the thing is I had a question regarding that, because we were told in our training that we had with the Metro Department is that when you do first aid or CPR, you have to ask, well, if they're coherent, you have to ask them if they want help. Because if not, it falls into the category of the goodwill.
The Good Samaritan.
Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan category. Now, with something with Narcan like that, if they come to and the guy walks away and he refuses all services, are we fall into that category of the Good Samaritan?
So that is so the question is if a civilian
Yes.
with training,
Yes.
find someone overdosing and how to administer first aid and Narcan. And it seems like there's some complications in the ability to actually administer it, even if you are trained, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's probably a law enforcement and legal questions. I don't know if you know anything about this, but certainly, I know the state senator is not here today, but I know we can probably ask that question to his team.
I wrote it down.
Oh, she wrote it down there, and then we can definitely get in touch with you, but it's a very, very good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll pass on to Andrea, see.
I would say that if you found someone unconscious, you could not ask their permission.
Yeah.
And your choice would be to let them die or to administer naloxone. Administer the naloxone. If they come to and they leave, that is their choice to do. But there is something, when you said that, it made me, I really want you to know that if you ever administer naloxone to someone and they come out of their overdose at that point, their lung depression can begin again. And so if you're talking about your family member or anyone that is going to listen to you, and you do bring them out of that overdose, you need to watch them. They could fall, without using another dose, could go back into lung depression and die. And so many times people are, they're able to leave the hospital even after overdose, right? Within minutes, they can walk away just as simply as that man did. And then they can go home and fall back into overdose. So something you should know for your family members or someone you're working with.
So we'll take one more question and then we'll start the video.
I just wanted to know if there's, maybe the video will explain it, but if there's any, if you see somebody unconscious, you're not sure if they're overdosing or having a heart attack or whatever the thing is, right? So, I mean, maybe you administer CPR first, but because you don't know. So what are some side effects if I just do Narcan on somebody who's having a heart attack, for instance, instead of doing the CPR?
So,
Does it help?
So,
It won't hurt them. Okay, it won't hurt them.
no, I don't think so. I think calling 911 would probably be a best bet.
You always want to call 911, but naloxone will not. If you were 9 months pregnant and I was suspected that you were overdosing and I used the naloxone on you, it is not going to harm you if overdose was not your issue. Of course, call 911. You're always continuing to try to work someone with resuscitation, those types of things. But naloxone will not have an adverse, negative effect on you if it was not an overdose.
So you can't go wrong by using it,
Okay,
basically.
so if you use it and they don't, do they immediately wake up?
You might have to shoot them more than once, and then but you switch nostrils every time you shoot, and then if they come to, you kind of want to put them on their side because sometimes we do vomit, so we can choke on our vomit. But like Andrea was saying, you don't want to leave. You want to call 911 first, then administer, and then 911 to hopefully get there in time. But my thing is everyone should have naloxone on them because that life you might save not only saves a family, you don't know what that person might become. That person might do something that might save your family member 10 years from now.
Amen.
I want to thank the Voices for Awareness team, Andrea and Mike. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. And their team that came with them to set up as well. Thank you very much, young folks out there. And thank you all for coming here. We're going to play the video now, and then again, we'll stay here to the end if you want anything, any more questions. We'll happy to answer it. But for now, thank you again for being part of the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you to the collaborative. Thanks, Leanna, for operating.